And disclaimer, the views and opinions expressed by individuals on this platform, the callers plus invited guests, are their own. The information you hear does not reflect the overall views of all parties associated with this brand. We encourage everyone to research all things heard live or via archive for edification purposes. Discretion is advised.
Don't touch that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk Free Radio.
Help keep the show on the air. If you want to help, you can send your donation through PayPal. The email is debatetalkforyou@gmail.com or through Cash App, $Sal Showtime. Thanks for your support.
Peace, peace, peace. What it is, your brother Tyvon Swainell, a.k.a. the Orthodox Moor, a.k.a. the Seven Pillars Harrison, a.k.a. Brother Moore. Wishing you all peace and blessings. And I am pleased to bring to you an interview and a review with my good brother, the Hebrew of Israel, a.k.a. Ibri from Yapgang. This is a brother who I have no issue saying, though. He's almost 20 years my junior. Almost, not quite, almost 20 years my junior. He has taught me quite a bit when it comes to the DNA of Natufians and other Semitic populations of the Middle East. Very, very, very knowledgeable young man. Very, very respectful young man. In terms of his demeanor and attitude and whatnot, he's definitely a model type young person that a lot of our young people should definitely follow, whatnot. But I ain't trying to butter the young man up too much, you know what I'm saying? But he is definitely a young lion, a powerhouse in the community, and he's at the forefront. He and other people like Yeshua, Issachar of Genesis 49ers, and others of Yapgang are at the forefront of the Israelite community in terms of talking about DNA, etc., and ethnic ties to being Hebrews, etc. And so recently, Vocab Malone was able to come on and have a hot seat discussion. And Ibri was the first person to question him. He had 8 minutes in his first round, and I believe he had 8 minutes in the second round after I was able to talk to Vocab for almost a half an hour. And so Ibri brought a lot of interesting genetic and DNA questions to Vocab that I would love to have Ibri help me review and cover, etc. And so not just that, I want him to come on and give a breakdown of his paradigm and its importance to the people, because I want people to understand this, family. Like, so the paradigm that he's pushing, and people like Yeshua and other people in the Yapgang are pushing, shout out to like Sean Harris, Shari Nye, and everyone else in the Yapgang. What they're pushing in terms of a paradigm is the table of nations in the Bible being proven out via modern genetics. So they're using modern science to prove the Bible, to prove the validity of the Bible. And so I want that to be understood. This isn't just an Israelite thing that they're doing. What they're doing is applicable for anybody who's a Bible believer. They're scientifically proving the validity of the Bible via their genetic model. So with that, I'm going to bring on the good brother, have him give a breakdown of his background, his personal interests, etc., his paradigm, and we will get into some of these clips, and I'll have him pause it up where he thinks it's applicable. I'll pause it up where I think it's applicable, and we will give some commentary on such. I will drop the link in the chat after such, and if people want to come on and ask some questions, they definitely are more than welcome to do so. So without further ado, peace and blessings, young sir. How are you doing?
Shalom, the Orthodox Moor. Shalom. It's good to be on the show. I believe this is my first time officially on the show, and it's good to be here. And so my name is the Hebrew of Israel, and All my social media platforms are under the same name, either The Hebrew of Israel or Hebrew of Israel. I have a YouTube channel, and I post videos that deal with DNA, breaking down the biblical table of nations. So far, I've been talking about haplogroup E and J, the origins of Afro-Asiatics, and the origins of Semitic populations. Currently, I am working on haplogroup J, breaking that down, and ancient Middle Eastern populations. And so I guess I'll give a little bit of a breakdown of my thought process. So when it comes to the Israelites, I believe that they would have haplogroup E. And forgive me if there's any background noise. But so I believe the Israelites had haplogroup E. The Israelites are a Semitic population. According to their genealogy, they trace their lineage from Shem to Israel. So this is a straight paternal line. This is why Y-DNA haplogroups are a great source of information, a great scientific tool to use, since the Israelites trace their lineage from a paternal line from Shem to Israel. And interestingly enough, we see that according to various linguists and geneticists, such as Christopher Ehret, Peter Bellwood, Andrew Limsky, and various others, that Afro-Asiatic and Semitic are one and the same. Semitic comes from Afro-Asiatic. It's an Afro-Asiatic language. And it's believed that Afro-Asiatics, Proto-Afro-Asiatics, had haplogroup E. And no matter where you place the origins of Afro-Asiatics, whether it's in the Horn of Africa, North Africa, the Eastern Sahara, or even in the Levant with the Natufians, they all would have had E markers, because Proto-Afro-Asiatic would have originated in the Mesolithic and Neolithic, where there was no haplogroup J in Africa or in the Levant, because haplogroup J entered in the Levant in the Third Bronze Age period, which is why I believe Shem wouldn't be J marker, but an E marker. Because all evidence points to Proto-Semitic populations having haplogroup E. So that's what I teach, and that's my model of things. I have no issue with Jews being descendants of Israel, especially those with haplogroup E. You have various Jewish populations: Ashkenazi, Sephardi, Mizrahi. Albert Einstein actually had haplogroup E, which is interesting. About 20% of Ashkenazi Jews have E. About 30% of Sephardi Jews have E. And you find E in various Arabic populations, specifically among the Proto-Arabian populations, such as Yemenis and Bedouins, who typically have the highest amount of Natufian ancestry. And one of my models, and perhaps the best model so far, for an old Earth and young Earth, is that the Natufians would represent the ancestors of Semites. And speaking of old Earth and young Earth, I have both models because I've come across various Israelites and Christians like Hugh Ross, who believe in an old Earth, or Kent Hovind, who believes in a young Earth. So I try to give models for both of those breakdowns as well. And yeah, I'm 23, a college student. I have a minor in history. So this is why I love this type of stuff. I love history. I love genetics. I love putting the pieces together when it comes to the ancient Near Eastern and African and Mediterranean populations. And I do have DNA from the Mediterranean, from North Africa, and from the Middle East. So I feel like it's, talking about it's very personal for me as well. And I think that would probably be about it. And I'm also a believer. I do my best.
Yeah, I want to touch on that last point. You said you're a believer. Like, so this genetic conversation for you, it has nothing to do with salvation, and you're not making like a genetic superiority claim for Israel being or people with haplogroup E being more special than people who don't have it.
Oh yeah, most definitely not. I'm not saying that people with haplogroup E are automatically going to go to heaven. I think that would be ridiculous. You have various evil people with haplogroup E. I'm just going to give you one example. Adolf Hitler. He actually had haplogroup E. I don't think that dude's making it to heaven. So, you have evil people with E, and you have good people with other haplogroups. Because we're all descendants of Adam and Eve. According to my model, I believe we all descend from Adam and Eve, and I believe we all descend from Noah. And we have various good humans with all types of genetic backgrounds, all types of cultural backgrounds, all types of national backgrounds. Goodness can be found in anyone.
Yeah, shout out to the good brother Ruth Smith. So also from what I understand, the Yapgang, part of their concept is that they believe that genetics eradicates racism, in the sense to where you don't believe that, like, there's some people out here who believe that you could have haplogroup E, but not have the same paternal lineage as someone else who has haplogroup E just because you have a different skin tone. Is that something you affirm, or is that something you go against, or how do you deal with that concept?
Yeah, so yes, I do believe DNA can debunk racism. There's various articles online that even discuss this, both from a creationist standpoint and even a secular standpoint. Haplogroups actually prove that all men and even women are all genetically related. We go back to a common ancestor, which means technically there aren't different races. There's really just different ethnicities. And then, when you break it down even from there, you have different cultures and languages and customs, but anybody can learn a culture and a language. So DNA breaks those boundaries. It shows that there is a common humanity. And also, when it comes to haplogroups, people can share the same haplogroup and look completely, totally different. I'll use Albert Einstein as an example. Again, Albert Einstein had haplogroup E. He had E1B1B, and he looks like a typical Ashkenazi Jew. And you have people in Nigeria with haplogroup E, like the Fulani, and they look nothing like Albert Einstein. So like haplogroup E, I'm just going to use that as an example. You have various ethnic groups that phenotypically look different. Amazigh people in North Africa, Arabians in the Middle East, Ashkenazi Jews, Greeks, and Nigerians, Ethiopians. All of these groups look completely different. And for the most part, they speak different languages. Most of them speak Afroasiatic, but different branches of the Afroasiatic family. But still, they all have a common root, which would be E-P2. And if you go even further back, it's haplogroup DE. But so yeah, that's ways that you can destroy the idea of phenotype, like, oh, this person looks different from me. They can't be related. No, they actually could. And haplogroups can prove that. So
Fantastic. So you talk a lot about like the male lineage. Well, no, let me do it like this. So I something I see you focus on quite a bit is this conversation about E versus J, and about which one is Semitic or Proto-Semitic, or the foundational basal basal genetics of the Semitic people. You want to run that down real quick for people?
yes. So the reason why I look at basal Semitic populations or proto-Semitic populations or pre-proto-Semitic populations, pre-proto means ancestral Semitic. The reason why I look at these populations is because they would have been the earliest and basically the first people, the original people, in a sense, the pure Semitic types that emerged. And I don't look at modern Semitic populations because anybody can speak a Semitic language. Like I can start learning Hebrew and Arabic and live in the Middle East and live there for centuries and have kids there for centuries. That wouldn't necessarily mean that they were Semitic for thousands of years or that they were a basal Semitic population. No, anybody can learn a language. I know English. That doesn't make me an Anglo-Saxon. So looking at modern populations isn't what I do, and it's an issue that I've noticed a lot of people have. A lot of people look at the Middle East today, they see a bunch of J markers, people speaking Semitic languages and having Semitic culture, and so boom, bing, bang, boom, they must be the original Semitic population. But that would be an oversimplification, and that's what many studies actually show. When it comes to these genetic papers, it basically shows that haplogroup E would have been the earliest pre-Proto-Semitic populations because Proto-Semites either came out of Africa, which is what Christopher Ehret and many others believe, and they would have had haplogroup E, or they would have originated in the Levant or even in Arabia. But even then, you had ancient E markers there. Haplogroup E only came into the Levant and the early Bronze Age 3 period. And even then, it came because of the Coral-Araxes migration from the Caucasus into the Near East, or into the Middle East. And it came as a Caucasian culture with their own distinct language called Hurriatrian. So that's why I title some of my videos Haplogroup E versus J, because I break down from the origin of Afro-Asiatic and from the origin of Semitic. Who was there? Who was in the region when Semitic languages was first being spoken? And it was E markers. It wasn't J markers. J markers came late, and they adopted the Semitic language and culture, which is why today we see people with haplogroup J that speak Semitic languages. Their ancestors adopted it. And so this is how I kind of frame things to not offend people too much. I say haplogroup J has Semitic speakers, yes, but it's not the originator of the Semitic language. It adopted the Semitic language from haplogroup E because haplogroup E is Proto-Semitic.
So real quick, I want to say shout out to Shari Naya. She's another member of Yapgang. And something that, so Ibri was talking about that he's tracing the paternal line and paternal descent from Noah on down, etc. And something that Shari and myself are both doing is dealing with the maternal descent concept, because we all believe that the Bible confirms the concept of mitochondrial DNA and paternal DNA. At least you can trace the lineage of the mother and the father. So you have the seed of the mother and the seed of the father concept. So me and Ibri, we spar back and forth on this a little bit, but I tend to believe that the seed of the woman will be integral to finding out who the actual bloodline Israelites are in like a situation like a archaeological dig or whatnot. So if you're trying to find out people who have like Abraham's Y DNA and like Sarah's mitochondrial DNA, you'll be able to get a better look as to who is who in a dig site that would contain multiple people, particularly if multiple people have haplogroup E or whatnot, right? You might have to determine who they are based upon the mitochondrial DNA. So shout out to Sister Shari Nye. She's also putting together her model on the concept of what is like Sarah's haplogroup, what's Hagar's haplogroup, etc., etc., etc. But enough of that. Yeah, check this out. She says Christ would be through his mother in my model. Very interesting. So yeah, so when she's done putting some presentations together, because she's a bit of perfectionist, we will definitely have her on the show and breaking down her perspective. And we're also going to have Ibri's. Ibri has an extensive video library and playlist on his presentations, which are thoroughly sourced out and very, very, very scholastic. You can hear him talking. He's freestyling right now, family. He's not reading a script. He's talking this stuff off the top of his head. He knows this stuff like it's a second language. Legitly. He has a lot of information that you can go check out, and I will be replaying a lot of his information here on Debate Talk Few on Tuesdays and Thursdays, depending on what's going on with the schedule. But going forward, I'm going to play some of what or play all of what Ibri had to say in his conversation with Vocab Malone, and we will be doing some commentary. So Ibri, stop me whenever you want me to stop you. And you can say whatever you want to say and comment on whatever you want to comment on. And I'm going to do the same and probably ask you to comment on a few things.
All right, sure thing.
That's what's up. So I'm going to share my screen, mute my mic, and let the games begin.
Let's make it hot for Vocab. All right. Hopefully he doesn't get too bored. Hopefully he will need some water when I check in about 10 after 6 out here. So indeed. All right, man. So let's go ahead. Let's get the first guest in here. We got Hebrew of Israel. Shalom, and say what's up to the people.
Shalom, you guys, Vocab Malone and Gabir. Did I say that right?
Gabar.
Sorry, Gabar. And
Yes,
Vocab
sir. Yes,
Malone.
sir. All right. Hebrew of Israel, are you ready, man? Are you ready?
Yes, sir. I am ready.
All right. So Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, as you heard the ding before, whenever your 8 minutes is up, that's when you'll hear that time, and then I will chime in and let you know when you have 2 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
All right. 8 minutes, and your time starts as soon as I drop out.
All right. So I have basically two questions for you, Vocab Malone, and one statement. So my first question is, are you aware of any Israelite channels on YouTube that teach DNA, such as, creating a model for the biblical table of nations by using Y-DNA haplogroups and languages?
I've got sent some links about some of those. So I know there's, I think, at least 4 that I'm somewhat aware of, including, I think, one guy who was a kind of an extensive blog, but I don't know the names off the top of my head. Those aren't the main types of things that I deal with, but it's interesting for sure.
Mhm. Okay. So I'm an Israelite that teaches DNA, and me and a group that I'm a part of called Yapgang, and Yap is basically the Y chromosome haplogroup DE. And in our model, we see haplogroup E as representing Shem, the biblical Shem. Um, and because of this, we believe that the Israelites will be from the haplogroup E subclades. And with haplogroups being passed down from father to son, anybody can look like anything and have the same haplogroup. So in our group, we don't phenotype. Like, we recognize Ashkenazi Jews, Sephardi Jews, Mizrahi Jews, Yemeni Jews, basically Jews all over the world as being actual, Israelites based on the haplogroup E marker. And we don't really use things like Deuteronomy 28, or, like I said, Lamentations, meaning black unto the ground, stuff like that. We don't use that type of scripture. But yeah, so I just wanted to lay that out when it comes to me as an Israelite and some other Israelites out here, again, Yap Gang, that teach haplogroup E and study the genetic markers of
You're
of Jewish
affiliated with
population.
Genesis 49ers, right?
Yes, sir, I am. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I've talked to him and seen some of his stuff, and I know there's a video that is I've seen on multiple channels. The white Hebrew Israelites torched by
You can pause that part
right?
right here. Yeah, that was us. Actually, I'm just gonna make a quick statement, but it's kind of interesting. I never would have thought that Vocab Malone was watching Genesis information. I assume maybe he's watching mine as well, but that's very just interesting to me. I never imagined that. But that's all I had to share.
Yeah, I would assume he's watching now. Definitely after your interaction and whatnot. But that's kind of the point. Like, our urban apologists up to date on the modern Israelite models? Because a lot of what you're saying is, I think, is pretty groundbreaking and whatnot, right? But he is saying he's aware of Yeshub. Shout out to Yeshub. Hey, Yeshub, I see you in the chat, fam. The link's out there. If you want to jump on, feel free to jump on, fam. You are always welcome to jump on. Anyone from Yap is definitely welcome to jump on. I'll put the link in your group chat, etc. But yeah, I thought that was interesting as well. But what I thought was even more interesting was when he engaged with your arguments, what he was engaging with. Because I think a lot of it has a lot of so to his credit, he said that he wasn't as well studied on the DNA arguments as he is on other things. He does more with theology, whatnot, and apologetics arguments. However, he was somewhat familiar with certain genetics conversations. He was talking about haplogroup J quite a bit.
Cohen marker. I remember him.
Yeah, and that's what I thought was interesting, based upon the way you speak about things. And so I would, based upon how you broke down your paradigm, I would like for the audience to pay attention to that going forward and to what's being said going forward. So I'm gonna let this play now.
Actually going up against a British Israelism, which was kind of interesting.
Oh wow, the Anglo Israelite. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah. And I just wanted to know, if you was aware of groups like us talking about it. Because we also have other like Jewish people part of our group, like the Yemenite Jew and the Lithuanian Jew and stuff like that, people like that. So
do you have explanations of how you came to the conclusion that E represents Japheth.
Shem.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. Yes.
Oh, that's all good. So what I do is use language. So when it comes to the Afroasiatic languages, particularly Proto-Afroasiatic and Proto-Semitic, I've read various papers that basically illustrate that the Proto-Semites, the first Semites, the earliest Semitic population, would have had haplogroup E. If you look into the Bayesian phylogenetic analysis of Semitic languages, which deals with the earliest formation of Semites, either they would have came from Africa or they would have originated indigenous in the Levant. And
So, with what you just said there, ironically, this statement comes up. Yalaman 77 says the mixed multitude was a mixed melanated The mixed multitude was a mixed melanated nations: Egypt, Kush, Ethiopians. So 95% of Ashkenazim do not reflect that truth in their DNA. Would you
all
like?
right. Oh, my bad.
No, I'm. Yeah. Would you like to speak on that?
Oh yeah, definitely. So yeah, I agree that in the Exodus time period, the Israelites would have been mixing basically with Nile Valley African populations. When I get to the Israelite presentation coming out in May, I'm going to actually detail some very interesting things when it comes to that. But so when it comes to the Jewish populations, what's interesting about them is that they actually, well, actually, no, I'm not going to go down the one route I was going to take. I'm actually going to explain this. So when it comes to the Israelites in the ancient Levant, there actually was white, quote unquote, white ethnic groups there, Caucasian ethnic groups there. It is the fact that we have found haplogroup J with ancient Iranian DNA in Canaanite grave remains. And if you look at certain murals of the Asiatics, that how the Egyptians depicted them, to me, a lot of them look like tan-skinned Iranian peoples. So when the Israelites came out of Egypt and mixed with Caucasian populations that were in the Levant, in the land of Canaan, you would have had a blend of, I'm just going to say, quote unquote, white and black. So it wasn't just melanated populations that the Israelites were always mixing with. They mixed with populations that were not melanated. For instance, the Hittites. The Israelites mixed with the Hittites. If you study the Hittites, they're an Anatolian, Indo-European population. They likely would look white, and there are depictions of the Hittites, and they look like Armenians. They have an Armenoid phenotype, and so Israelites, yes, they definitely would have mixed with dark-skinned nations, and I believe the Israelites were dark-skinned right off the bat. I believe the best example of an Israelite phenotype before they started mixing with dark-skinned nations would have been a Yemeni, Bedouin, and Arabian phenotype. Basically, they would look like people on both sides of the Red Sea because the Israelites are an Afroasiatic population. So they would have looked like other ancient Afroasiatic peoples. But they did, in fact, mix with other nations that were not dark-skinned in ancient times. And Ashkenazis, by the way, do have about 3 to 5% of our own DNA in them. They have 3 to 5% of Yoruba, West African DNA, and Luya Bantu DNA in them. That happened 3,400 years ago. Very interesting. All this will culminate in a video that will come out soon, in May, hopefully. But yeah.
So it says in the comments, so 95% of Ashkenazim do not reflect that truth in their DNA. From what you understand, that you get into a little bit here. Like, so what is the percentage of Ashkenazis that have E and Sephardic people that have E, etc., in your model? And how
Yes.
model?
Yeah, so I guess I'll break down the Ashkenazium genome and their Y-DNA. So Ashkenazis have about 20% haplogroup E, as we know of now. If more Ashkenazis were to take DNA tests, that could increase. That's another thing we have to keep in mind, is that Ashkenazis could have way more haplogroup E than we know, but many of them aren't taking DNA tests. But we know that the ones who have, 20% of their population has haplogroup E. That's pretty decent number. And when it comes to the Ashkenazium genome, did you want me to break that down? I don't have to, but
Sure, if you want to.
yeah. So when it comes to the Ashkenazium genome, they do have a Levantine component in them, specifically from the Megiddo period of the Middle Bronze Age, and they have a little bit of Eastern European. So they definitely part of their ancestry does definitely come from the Levant, both autosomally and also when it comes to their Y DNA. Even if they have J markers, they come from the Middle East. I mean, it was there, but it just came from the Hurrian population.
Yeah, like so I find this interesting. So my mother's family comes from North African Jews by way of Spain and Mexico, and her father is EM34, right? Which is an upward clade of like what Dante Fortin has, right? He's a subclade of EM84, both of which are subclades of Natufian strands of DNA. And so my grandfather, he's phenotypically Mediterranean, yet he still has an E haplogroup like you're talking about. And what I find is like, so a lot of, I was speaking about this earlier about how 25% of Latinos and Hispanics have Jewish DNA. They're taking a lot of DNA tests where the Ashkenazis aren't, right? And I can tell you right now, like, so I was able to test the paternal DNA in my mother's side of the family through her brother and whatnot, my grandfather's oldest son, and what his genetic matches with other people, like it's ridiculous. He's either it's three groups. He's either related to Q, R, or no, four groups: Q, R, E, or J. But it's mostly like it's E, J, or make half of it, and then R makes up almost the other half. You know what I'm saying? And we're talking about like we're finding people that are Hispanic in the American Southwest that are having not just E1B1B, but having E1B1A as well. Blowing my mind. You feel what I'm saying? Like, so for instance, my uncle has East African autosomal DNA on top of Middle Eastern DNA, etc., and North African DNA, which coincides with this. Like, so we talk a lot about that. Like, so my man Ibri helped me learn a lot about the Natufians, right? One thing I noticed about the Natufians is there's a large pocket of their DNA in Ethiopia, Kenya, and also in the Levant. Those are the two big pockets. And so, ironically, my and what makes sense about this is that, like, so my grandfather's autosomal DNA matches up to what that looks like. He not only has DNA from Levant, but he also has DNA from East Africa in his autosomal DNA. Just want to throw that one out there. But I'm gonna let you. Did you want to comment on that or no?
One thing I would say is that what's interesting about African Americans is that I'm starting to see when they take DNA tests and break down the raw DNA data, some of them actually are coming out with a little bit of Natufian DNA, and some of them are coming out with even in their autosomal DNA we see some East African, some North African, a little bit of Middle Eastern. In my DNA specifically, I come out with North African, East African, and Middle Eastern in my autosomal alone, and then in my raw DNA data it increases. But if we were just stuck in Western Africa, we shouldn't have this at all. We should just only have hunter gatherer and West African.
Yeah.
But
as a matter of fact, there's a lot of, not to cut you, but there's a lot of people in Yap that have East African DNA. Or DNA from the Horn, myself, Ibri, Shari, etc.
Facts. So, this is why DNA is a good tool to use, because this gene flow from East Africa could point to migration. Maybe we came from Eastern Africa to West Africa, or maybe we came from Northern Africa to West Africa. But yeah, that's all I got to say to that.
And at very least, it fits. It very well fits the narrative of the Bible, and that's what I want people to understand. Is this isn't just an Israelite concept again. This is genetically proving the narrative of the Bible. But going forward,
and so in that time period, there would have been high markers of E, and there's actual papers that do say that pre-Proto-Symmites or Proto-Symmites would have carried E markers. So that's why I posit that the Israelites would descend from those populations that have haplogroup E.
And you believe that we can know who their descendants are?
Yes, and I kind of use the modern Jewish population to a certain extent to mark that, because 20% of Ashkenazi Jews have E and like 30% of Sephardi have E. So it's kind of interesting.
So what do you think the main significance, let's say an Ashkenazi or Sephardic has E, what does that mean for their spirituality, their relationship with God? What do you think is the application of that?
Can you pause that right there? Oh, I do this mostly for like the that was an interesting question. I'm not for sure if he was supposed to give me questions because he was on the hot seat, but that was a very interesting question. I didn't quite expect it, but I've always known why I do what I do, because it's even in my bio on my YouTube channel that I do this for history and genetic purposes. Like I like that type of stuff. My minor's in history in college after all. So, but yeah, that was a very interesting question.
Yeah, Gabar is being very, very, very liberal with it. Typically, the questions are for the people on the hot seat. The people on the hot seat don't get to ask questions.
Oh, okay. That's I was like,
But that's
that's
exactly why I wanted you to come on. I wanted to play this because it's actually kind of turned into like a lightweight interview of you during the hot seat. And I thought it was interesting because it showed what the level of information was, because he needed to ask a lot of questions, which is why I'm saying, like, how familiar are the urban apologists? Do they know that people are saying certain things? Are they aware of the arguments being made, etc.? And that's why I wanted to have you come on and start breaking things down a little bit.
Yeah, and by the way, if you're watching Vocab, you might be, or maybe someone who knows you might be watching, or a follower of yours or whatever. But if you want to have a dialogue, a discussion, and it'd be longer than 16 minutes like we had, then I'm down to talk on here, debate talk for you, or anywhere else. Well, debate talk for you specifically. But yeah.
Yeah, and Abu said he was down. And I gotta get it, Abu, because Abu, I got you a debate for you know what I'm saying, for Lashon Kadash, my G. I gotta get at you, my G. But yeah. Shout out to my man Yitzhak in the building. Yemenite Jew, member of GAP, you know what I'm saying? Or GAP, YAP, excuse me. My fault. But yeah, so like my man was saying, there's different so YAP is not on some Negro only type stuff, right? YAP is literally trying to rock out with their ethnic brethren throughout the entirety of the diaspora and whatnot. And so, like my man saying, he got no issue connected with a Yemenite Jew who's got no issue connecting with a Lithuanian Jew who's E, or a Ashkenazi Jew who's E, etc.
We had a Karaite Jewish guy in our group.
Mm-hmm.
We had like more said, a Lithuanian one, and he had E1B1A, which is very interesting. Him and his male family members.
That's what I'm saying. What do you do with that? Like, I'm finding Sephardic people in the family that got E1B1A. I'm like, yo, I don't even got E1B1A. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Man, shout out to the OG Sean Harris. You know what I'm saying? The OG of Yapgang. You know what I'm saying?
And just to touch on the Lithuanian Jew for just a quick second, what's interesting about his story, so he has haplogroup E in his family, his male family, etc. His family left before the Holocaust. It was either before or after the Holocaust, but a lot of his male family members stayed in Lithuania and they died. And that got me thinking, like, during the Holocaust, we could have lost a lot of E markers, even E1B1A markers in the gas chambers and such, in the concentration camps. Because all his male family members with E1B1A are gone. Only that one lineage survived.
That's interesting. So so typically what I find is like the genetic flow between like the Ashkenazi and the Sephardic, they have like typically similar ranges to stuff. And so when you're saying like one has 30% E and the other one has 20% E, it's interesting. Like, so like it almost seems like what you're suggesting, like they might have lost 10% or more in the gas chamber.
Exactly. Wow. That's what I'm thinking. Wow. I feel like a lot of E markers died in the Holocaust, and also a lot of Jews even today haven't taken DNA tests.
Mm-hmm.
So potentially there still could be a lot of Jews with E that just haven't taken tests yet.
That's interesting. Something that I bring to the Afghan conversation is a conversation based upon expanding the Kohimoto haplotype conversation, and how that conversation's even had. And I'm going to touch on that here in a second. But very recently, in the Jewish diaspora, we have the people like the Lemba Jews and the Igbo Jews being recognized as actual Jewish populations, and we know for a fact that E is prominent amongst both of those populations. So, how does that affect your model? Does that play into
you
your
lagged a
model?
little bit. Can you repeat that last part again?
How do I was saying that? So how does like the Igbo Jews and the Lemba Jews, who are recently being found as Jews or being recognized as Jews, who have a high level of E in their population? So I do believe that like the Lemba are at least 40% E, and I do believe that the Igbo are somewhere around 90+% E, something like that. So how does that play into your model, and does that affect your model?
Yeah, so yeah, the Igbo and the Lemba have just been recognized as Jews, which is very, very fascinating. And this works according to their deep DNA, their raw DNA data, because there was a paper that came out showing that these groups, specifically, I'm going to talk about the Igbo because they're the least that people know about. So when it comes to them, they actually have an ancient Bronze Age Levantine component in them. There is gene flow from the Levant in their ancestry. And that's, it shouldn't be there if they're not from the Levant. I mean, genes, oops, did y'all hear that? I'm sorry for my background. But genes don't just pop up in you. You have to get it from coming from a certain location or being around a certain group of people. So it's interesting that these Igbo people have this gene flow from the Levant, and them having E markers just makes it even better because haplogroup E-P2, it is Proto-Afroasiatic. These people's ancestors, we can at least say that they have ancestry from the Levant and that their ancestors could have been Proto-Afroasiatic speaking peoples before adopting or changing their language to more of a Niger Congo language, because the Bantu, of course, because the Limba, of course, speak a Bantu language, even though they have gene flow from the Middle East.
So we have a question on the floor from Brother Ramal Yahoo. What's the best DNA kit for haplogroups and migrations? I'm gonna let you take a stab, but then I'm gonna put my 2 cents on it.
Great question. That's an excellent question. So I would say, just to start off with the basics and keep things nice and simple, I would get 23andMe. It gives you your haplogroup, your mitochondrial, your Y, and it gives you your autosomal DNA. And I've been taking various DNA tests. Like I'm trying to basically take every DNA test out there so that the Israelite community can know which ones to do. And I have a few more that I need to take, but I've taken a lot. So there's another company that I found that is very, very interesting. It deals with your autosomal DNA and it deals with your raw DNA data. And I can't remember if it deals with your haplogroup, but I think looking at raw DNA data, your ancient ancestry, basically going back thousands of years, like 4,000 years ago, is very important and very good to look into, because that basically says where your ancestors could have came from. Like I have some Natufian ancestry in me, and I only found that out by looking at the raw DNA data, not the autosomal DNA. But that's a whole nother thing. But hopefully I answered your question. 23andMe for now. And then when you get more money, look into your raw DNA data. Download that DNA, put it into GEDmatch, put it into Vahadu. I can make a video explaining how to do all that. And check out other DNA companies that break down the data. So
yeah, so my 2 cents is this. Like, so I would go with 23andMe to start off with, just because they are, if you're looking for your haplogroups, okay, specifically if you're looking for haplogroups, go for 23andMe, because they have the highest STR count out of all of the DNA groups, and they give you the most specificity in what your haplogroups are. That's what I give the STR count means. Like basically, it's shorthand and repeat. So they're looking for repetitive code in your DNA, etc. Like, so that they're the most meticulous with that. I would then say to back it up with family tree DNA. You have to pay a little bit extra for the Y DNA and the mitochondrial DNA. You can find out, okay, does this line up? Is it the same haplogroup, haplotype, etc. But on top of that, they're more sensitive. Like family tree DNA is more sensitive to North African, Middle Eastern, East African, and Jewish DNA tests. So, for instance, 23andMe will only test for Ashkenazi Jewish DNA. Family tree DNA will test for Sephardic Maghrebi, which is Sephardic and North African Jewish. They will test for Middle Eastern Jewish. They will test for Ethiopian Jewish and Ashkenazi Jewish. And so, for instance, my family was able to confirm that they're Sephardic Maghrebi Jewish through family tree DNA, whereas 23andMe doesn't give you that option. They'll throw all your Jewish DNA into Ashkenazi Jewish DNA, etc. So again, I would say out of the two popular ones, the two, like, because most people aren't going to go sift through everything like Ibri is going to do, and I commend him for what he does, because I do a very similar thing. Like, so I've taken 4 DNA tests from the 4 major sites, from 23andMe, Family Tree, Ancestry DNA, and also MyHeritage, right? And again, the best bang for your buck is going to be to do 23andMe for your haplogroups, and then comparing and contrasting your autosomal DNA with Family Tree and 23andMe, because again, 23andMe is very insensitive to North African and East African DNA, etc. Whereas the Family Tree is the most sensitive to it that I've seen so far. So I hope that wasn't too long-winded. With that, I'm going to keep playing this, John.
Understanding of the ancient world, like I have a minor in history, so when it comes to like trying to figure out the ancient Near East, that's kind of why I do this. Also, genetically as well, why I do this, because I just like the ancient world. So I just like I just consider myself like Indiana Jones, I guess. But in terms of spirituality, of course, Yeshua, or Jesus Christ, obviously he's more important. He's who you go through to be saved. But I do this side stuff, the history and the genetics, for the fun of it, like connecting people and stuff.
So what are do you have any what are some of maybe the best papers or books that you think let's say we're going to get started looking at this, a person could read to understand the earliest Semites?
So Ramal Yahoo asks a fantastic question. How much does it cost? You can go online and find out the cost for 23andMe, Family Tree, etc., and all these other, even the third-party sites. But I would recommend that you look during holiday seasons and whatnot, because they typically have sales at that time. So you can get a large discount depending on the time of year that you buy.
Semites and their point of origin and their haplogroups. What are some of the maybe names or authors, something to refer to maybe?
Yeah, so I will look into a linguist professor by the name of Christopher Ehret. I will look into Edward Lemsky. I would look into the recent paper dealing with Semitic languages called the Bayesian Phylogenetic Analysis. Hold on, let me look up the exact title. It is the Bayesian Phylogenetic Analysis of Semitic Languages Identifies an Early Bronze Age Origin in the Levant. There's so many other people. Who else? S.O.Y. Kita. Who else? There's I might get this guy's name mixed up wrong a little bit.
2 minutes.
Tolvi. I have actually another question before
Sorry about
before they get to the other question, I would just like to point out that in the near future, you'll be able to pick up some YAP information and literature on their table of nation breakdown, and also Ibri's breakdown on E versus J in terms of which one is Proto-Semitic, etc. I'd also just like to point out Sean Harris is a hater. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
And yeah, I am coming out with the book soon. Yeah, I already got the title and creating the chapters and stuff, my preface and all that.
Left me all out the shout out. That's all, man.
Shout out Orthodox.
I feel leather slapped right now, Sean. You know what I'm saying? I feel leather slapped right now. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Shalom Shari, Shalom Sean, Shalom Yeshub, Shalom Elkem, Shalom Yirmiyahu, D-Red, and Yitzhak. Yap. I almost forgot.
Yeah. Shalom to everybody in the Yapgang. Yeah.
Sorry about that. Go ahead. Yeah.
So the last question I have is so I said all of that to say earlier, and do you know Abu, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. So he said in the past that out of haplogroup E and haplogroup J, he sees really good evidence for haplogroup E being Semitic and Israelite, stuff like that.
I'm going to rewind this a little bit so you get some context, but I wanted to touch on this. So Yalamed77 says, right now, Ancestry DNA has a sale looking into African ancestry DNA, just to be more precise. And so I'll say this: Ancestry DNA is not really worth the bang for the buck. You don't get the haplogroup testing, and then you get the same North Africa bias that 23andMe has, the same North Africa East Africa bias. So I'm not a big fan of Ancestry. If you're just looking for autosomal concepts, yeah, Ancestry's fine. Ancestry's cool. And particularly if you're trying to connect yourself to the large to potential family members or lost family members, etc. whatnot, Ancestry is one you want to connect with because they have a huge database. Huge database. That's what's up, you know what I'm saying? I don't feel as bad right now, Sean. I appreciate you, brother, man. You know what I'm saying? I was feeling leather slapped in that piece. I almost feel like I was getting pistol whipped right quick, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, you know what I'm saying? Inside joke. But yeah, so if you are concerned about haplogroups, I would definitely suggest 23andMe to start off with, because they will give you 23andMe will give you your Y DNA and your mitochondrial DNA for free in the regular breakdown. You don't got to pay extra for it. Family tree DNA, you have to pay extra for it, but you can get both. And it's more sensitive to North and East Africa. My Heritage and Ancestry, like My Heritage is really cheap. I got My Heritage done as well. My Heritage is cool. My Heritage has if you're interested in different types of Jewish DNA, I would also suggest doubling up with My Heritage, like get the family tree and the My Heritage, because My Heritage also separates out Ashkenazi and Sephardic Maghrebi, Ethiopian, etc. Whereas Ancestry does not, and whereas 23andMe does not. So I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions about that, please ask. I will do my best to clarify. But yeah, people like me and Ibri and other people in Yap are really good to ask these questions to, because between all of us, we've taken all the tests out there. You feel what I'm saying?
Big facts, big facts. So I ask you, out of Hapkita, who else? There's I might get this guy's name mixed up wrong a little bit.
2 minutes.
Totally. But I have actually another question before.
Sorry about that. Go ahead. Yeah.
So the last question I have is so I said all of that to say earlier, and do you know Abu, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. So he said in the past that out of haplogroup E and haplogroup J, he sees really good evidence for haplogroup E being Semitic and Israelite, stuff like that. So I ask you, out of haplogroup E versus J, which one do you see best as being Shem or Semitic or Israelite, etc.?
With any kind of definitive certainty, I don't think we can make some kind of definitive statement on that. I think we can say there's ones that are more likely and less likely, and we can do what are called population studies. So, J is not just something that only those who identify in some way as modern day Jews or Hebrews have. It's heavily present in what are sometimes referred to as Arab populations, for example, which would make sense if there's some kind of relation there. And then, I think the potential blood descendants of Aaron is also, Cohen modal type. I think that's an interesting area of study too. But
Can you pause that right there?
even though I think it's interesting,
So he says he talked about the Cohen modal haplotype and that being interesting, and I agree. And I kind of wonder if he's actually aware of the Cohen modal haplotype among the Samaritans, because In Israel, there is a Samaritan tribe who traces themselves back to the tribe of Levi. They're Kohanim, Levites, and of course, the Samaritans never left the land. They stayed there. They're an ethno-linguistic, religious, isolated population. And what's interesting about these Samaritans, who are Kohanim, who claim from the tribe of Levi, that never left the land, they actually have haplogroup E, and they have E-M78. And that's very, very interesting to me. So next time I talk to him, I might mention the Samaritans because they're very interesting people.
I do believe you mean EM 123.
Well,
do I have
from the
that
paper
wrong?
that from the paper that I read, it was E-M78. Yeah.
So I've read one that has the Samaritan Jews at EM 123 as well.
Oh, maybe it's two haplogroups then. It could be two.
Either or, we're talking about E1B1B, fam.
Yeah, either way, E1B1B. Yeah.
I haven't got into it as deep as some of the other stuff, primarily because the relationship to theology, I don't think is as clear with that as some of the other issues. And I do think there's some real ambiguity, so I know people make arguments, but a lot of times it's incredibly circumstantial, especially when they're trying to tie in linguistics to genetics. I think there could be some troubling aspects to that methodology.
Can you pause that right there?
So, I mean, I'd love to look at more of what you have.
So he says that he feels like there's issues tying linguistics and genetics. And actually, this isn't really an issue, especially with ancient populations. And I start to notice that a lot of people are saying that. For instance, a guy called Jacob Israel, or Hebrew Israelism, he's even said that, even though he believes that even though he's trying to attach the J marker to Semites. But anyways, so the reason why it's not an issue, just so I can explain it, tying genetics to language, is because of this. A haplogroup. What is a haplogroup? Haplogroups are basically people. People create language. People create culture. A specific population specific populations typically create their own culture and their own language. This is why looking at haplogroups is important, because most populations that speak the same language and share the same culture, as specifically an ancient language and ancient culture, they typically are all genetically the same. And people make this argument all the time. People always say Niger Congo and Bantu populations are E1B1A. They have nothing to do with the Israelites. They're using language when they say Niger Congo and Bantu. They're using culture. They're using a geographical region. So people do it all the time, whether knowingly or unknowingly. And I'm doing the same thing. When I say haplogroup E, it's Afroasiatic, it's Proto-Semitic, according to what the linguists and geneticists say. So that's one thing to keep in mind. People create language, people create culture, and what else do people have? They have a haplogroup. So it's all important. It all ties together beautifully.
But I
All right, all right. The Hebrew of Israel, that is your time. That is your time. Definitely appreciate you coming on through and asking vocab the questions. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next person. All right. All right. So close it out. All right. So let's get the Hebrew of Israel back in. The Hebrew of Israel. Welcome back. Welcome back. Let's get another 8-minute set for you. Let's see here. And your time will start now.
All right, shalom. I just want to say thank you for talking to me, taking the time to talk to me, by the way, and give me your answers and stuff.
Yes, sir.
And oh, my bad. You can go ahead.
No, I just said yes, sir. I wasn't trying to cut in.
Oh, okay. And I just wanted to clarify that, I'm doing this to prove the Bible with science, much like I'm pretty sure you're familiar with Ken Ham and Kent Hovind, but that's more on the young creation side of things.
Mm-hmm.
This is more on the genetic side of things, Table of Nations, genetic Table of Nations model. But yeah, I actually would like to have you on my show one day to talk about genetics and whatnot, table of nations, showing everybody on the world today descending from Noah from a biblical standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, well, of course, I agree with you. Everybody alive today had to have descended from the line of Noah.
Mhm.
He's sort of a second Adam in that way. I'm not
Mhm.
saying the Bible calls him that, but I'm saying, that's a reality. Noah and his 3 sons, and of course the wives. Yeah, that's true. Rob, what is the last name? I'm forgetting his name, but he works for CMI, Creation Ministries International.
Mhm.
Dr. Rob, and I'm having trouble remembering. He has a great talk on Noah and the daughters of Eve, and gets into DNA that I think is a really helpful lecture. It's on YouTube, I believe, but I also have the DNA, or at least clips are on YouTube. But that's really, it might be Rob Carver, but don't quote me on that. I know it's Dr. Rob something, but yeah, there's some good stuff there.
Are you familiar with Dr. Nathaniel Jansen from Answers in Genesis?
He's an AIG guy that I know less than some of the others, but I've seen his name on the website and in their literature.
He has a very interesting model that I like. So basically, with his models, that he sees with the haplogroups that there could be 3 ancestral nodes, and that these 3 nodes could represent Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and all of humanity descending from those 3 ancestral nodes, rather than the phylogenetic tree, the secular phylogenetic tree of evolution. Either way, whether it's the phylogenetic tree or the 3 nodes, I think the 3 nodes are very interesting to look into.
Well, I mean, it does sound interesting. I just got, now I haven't been able to explore it much, answers.tv. They started a streaming service, and I just got it last Monday, or last Monday. And so I want to check out some of the stuff in there. They have some fascinating stuff on there. But yeah, I mean, I like, a lot of people don't like AIG. I do like AIG. I've been to the Ark Museum and the Creation Museum, and I like a lot of the stuff they do. So I mean, I'd love to learn more about whatever it is you're saying. I know he has a book, Traced. I still need to get that though.
Yeah, it recently came out. He published a book.
Yeah, Human DNA's Big Surprise, but I have not.
By the way, can you pause that part right there?
But I don't even know if it's shipping yet, but I know it's like,
even in that book that Dr. Nathaniel Jansen has, he even says that haplogroup J would belong to the Hittites. And of course, like I said, the Hittites, ancient Anatolian Indo-European people, and the Hittites were one of the Canaanite tribes mentioned in Genesis, and that the Israelites, fought against and whatnot, even mixed with. But also, the Hittites had a very strong influence with the Hurrians as well. Like I always say in all my videos, the Hurrians are a very important population to study. And I just find it interesting how Nathaniel Jansen connects haplogroup J, with the Hittites. So, yeah.
it's like brand new, but anyways,
You
yeah,
get the digital version.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that stuff's interesting. It seems like if you are saying in public that you believe some of the Ashkenazi and Sephardic are actually descended from Jacob, seems like you'd be getting a lot of pushback.
Oh, you do not believe the type of pushback I get.
Yeah, so
especially recently with certain Israelites. I probably shouldn't name the groups, but
yeah, it seems like you would be really receiving a lot of less than kind comments, because I don't think that's something that a lot of Hebrew Israelites would really be.
Oh, I have, and I've been called, like folks have said, my mom's Ashkenazi. People have called folks in my group mamzers, and oh, you're actually white and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I could see that being the case. Somebody's saying stuff like that, because once you say that you think they're Ashkenazi and to a lesser extent Sephardic, who might actually have like actual Semitic from
pause that right there.
Jacob DNA, I don't think that'd be a very popular position if you're.
Now that part is very, very interesting to me, how he said that. the Sephardi basically might have a really strong chance of having Semitic ancestry and links to Jacob. And again, like I said earlier, Sephardics actually have more haplogroup E among them than even the Ashkenazi. And Sephardis do have a lot of like North African DNA, more Middle Eastern DNA than Ashkenazis and such. So I thought that's very interesting what he said right there. And the Sephardic population is a very interesting population to study and look into. But yeah, that part is interesting.
And let me tell you, they carry A1B1A2, fam. So
at 10%. Yep.
If you're including them.
Yeah, because basically what I see is that I think that both groups could be true and that both groups could share an ancient ancestor despite how we look. I kind of want to see a connection between both African Americans that claim to be Israel. Of course, I don't believe every single African American is, but I believe some of us are. And I do think that there is a ancient genetic connection between the two peoples.
What do you think of I know that they don't like the term, so I'll only say it once, but Falasha.
Beta Israel.
Yeah, what do you think of? What's your general stance on that?
Yeah, so I've read their basic story, them being descendants of the tribe of Dan, and that's pretty interesting. So yeah, I can see them as being Israelites.
Have
I
you
know they're
looked into
haplogroup;
it?
they have a lot of A, but still,
Yeah, I was wondering what you thought of it genetically and how that would work with some of your other models.
Well, here's how I kind of look at things. So when it came to the Israelites and the mixed multitude, when everybody was at Sinai, you technically could have all types of haplogroups in that point. And once everybody was given, the law, and you was put under that, what's
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
when you was put under that coat of, I guess, multiple colors or the Mosaic law. It didn't matter really what haplogroup you have. You technically could descend from an ancient, I guess you say, proto-Israelite population. So the A markers and the J markers and the E markers, you could have had those three haplogroups there since the Exodus would have took place possibly in the late Bronze Age, where you would have had E, J, and A in that location of Egypt/Levant region.
What do you think of the Limba and some of their DNA evidence?
Yeah, the Limba are very interesting as well. They're diverse. So they have haplogroup J, haplogroup T, haplogroup E, a couple of different E's, E-M2, E-M35. So with them being very diverse like that, it makes sense that they'll descend from Middle Eastern populations, Israelite populations.
The Igbo. That's a controversial one. What do you make of?
Yeah, this really is a discussion. Asking me a lot of
some
questions.
of their claims and haplogroups.
Yeah, so the Igbo are also interesting. They mainly have E1B1A, of course. But what's interesting about the Igbo is their autosomal DNAs, particularly their raw DNA data, what's deep in their ancestry. And what we do see is that there is an ancient Levantine component deep within their genes, specifically a Bronze Age Levantine component, as well as a Neolithic one. And so I think that, there's definitely something there coming from the Levant. No way you can just get these genes out of nowhere. And did you want to say something?
Well, it seems like, based on what you're saying, I could see someone like you disagreeing with a lot of the 12 tribes chart inclusion with some of the people on the 12 tribes chart.
Yeah, the 12 tribes chart makes no sense. I mean, Native Americans have haplogroup Q.
All right, the Hebrew of Israel, that is your time. That is your time. Definitely appreciate you coming back through, man. Let's go ahead and let's move on.
So was there anything you'd like to say on that last bit there?
Yeah, so he asked about that. He said that I wouldn't agree with the or what I teach wouldn't line up or agree with the 12 tribes chart. And basically I was saying, yeah, the 12 tribes chart doesn't make sense because Native Americans, majority of their DNA is haplogroup Q, and then you find some C and some R. None of those haplogroups are Afroasiatic in origin. They Native Americans and their autosomal DNA are basically Siberian, and their ancient DNA as well. They basically come from Siberia, East Asia. So there's really no Levantine DNA within them. Now that being said, excuse me, the only population I would say has a decent chance of having connections to West Asia would be the Cherokee, because among them we found haplogroup T and mitochondrial X. Haplogroup T is found in, like I said, in West Asia, the Horn of Africa, the Mediterranean. Haplogroup Mitochondrial X is found in Anatolia, and it's very interesting how the Cherokee, out of all the Native Americans, have this particular ancestry. So there's definitely something there with them. Now, I'm not saying that they're Israelites or anything. I'm just saying that they definitely have some type of West Asian, Near Eastern, or Mediterranean type of tie in their DNA, which is
Hey, Shabbat
very
Shalom.
interesting. Shalom.
Hey, hold on real quick, Rabbi Lewis. Hold on real quick.
But yeah, so that's what I would have said to vocab if had more time.
Yo, more Shabbat Shalom.
Yeah, Shabbat Shalom. Hey, real quick, let me take care of some business and let you ask my man a question right quick. So, Rabbi Lewis is a Muslim and an Israelite that debates in a whole bunch of places and whatnot. And I used to be part of a place called the Solar Vision Debate League, of which I no longer debate. There, I had a couple of debates scheduled with Rabbi Lewis, of which I would like to invite him to debate here. Is that something you would be interested in, sir?
Yeah, bro. I've been blowing your phone up, bro. You gotta hit me up.
Yeah, call me from a non-private number.
Bro, take my number down. Hold on, let me put it in the back chat.
You got it. But yeah, go ahead and ask Ibri your brief questions if you could, man. Did you have anything you want to ask him about DNA? Or did you come on and talk to me?
Hold on. 1 second. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. Okay, I put it in the back chat. Did you get it?
Appreciate you. So did you have any questions about DNA?
Oh, brother, the Hebrew, what's your name? Israel. Shalom.
Shalom.
So what are you're a biologist?
Wait, can you say that one more time?
You study DNA?
Yes.
What's your academic background?
So I my major is mass communication. I have a minor in history, and I consider myself an amateur geneticist. All I do is, read the books, just like in college. You read the books, gain more information, and learn about the subject.
Oh, okay. You got James. You got what's it called? Discover DNA again. Crick, was that Francis Crick, right?
Wait, can you say that again? I didn't quite hear you.
Oh, who founded DNA? Was it Francis Crick and Crick, right?
Francis who?
Crick, who discovered DNA.
I'm not for sure. Francis Crick studied DNA. I know DNA. The understanding of genetics and ancestry, technically, and biology technically goes all the way back to ancient times. When it comes to human populations, trying to find out where people come from, whether it's through phenotype or DNA. But I haven't studied who discovered DNA.
Yeah, but Francis Crick and James Watson who discovered DNA. But anyhow. Yeah, you got Lenore E. Burson's work.
Can you say that one more time? I didn't quite hear you.
Lenore E. Burson's book.
No, I haven't had the pleasure of reading that one.
Oh, okay. So, Mark, what days go for you, bro? Could I come on the show?
We'll talk about that later. This is a whole different topic here. You got any questions about DNA or no?
Nah, I just wanted to tell you to hit me up.
Yep, I got your number, and I will definitely be getting at you, fam.
All right, guys. Shabbat shalom. Have a great Shabbat.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
So,
I guess, am I going to... Oh, actually, I was about to say, am I going to read comments, or are you going to bring people up? But I'm assuming you might still have some more questions.
I'm going to put the link in the chat, and whoever wants to jump on can definitely jump on and ask you brief some questions. This is definitely the appropriate time for such. I'm definitely going to ask some questions on this. So, like what you just did there with like the Native American DNA and disproving like your concept, how you would disprove like the 12 tribe chart or whatnot, right? That's not something that the urban apologists have done. You know what I'm saying? That's not something that they get into. You know what I'm saying? That's something that you guys have been able to do based upon your genetic model and proving out the proving out the Bible, the Table of Nations, be it modern genetics and whatnot. And so, how valuable do you feel genetics is to this conversation? Because a lot of people here, like we hear talk about, oh, you're just talking about endless genealogy, and that has nothing to do with the Bible and salvation and blah blah blah. But for you, like, so what positive role can genetics play in terms of A, identifying Israelites, and B, being a believer in the Bible?
Yeah, so DNA to me is a great tool. It's a great scientific tool to use because it solidifies you in a population. If your DNA is there, then it's there. Like, you can't say that my ancestors didn't come from this part of the world. Like, if I have Levantine DNA, or if I connect to Middle Eastern populations, you can't say that my ancestors didn't come there from there, or I don't have an ancestor in my genealogy that comes from that part of the world. And that's the beautiful thing about DNA. I know there's a lot of books that talk about Jews being black Portuguese Jews, black Spanish Jews, etc. But we've all come across people who would basically try to say things like, "Oh, that just talking about their hair," or "Oh, that just means that they're tawny, that they're kind of tanned compared to the Germans," and stuff like that. Anybody can twist the word black, but no one can twist the fact that Natufians had E1B1A, and that Proto-Semitic populations can come from the Natufians. You can't twist that unless you're straight up lying, you know. And so that's the beauty of DNA. It completely, it's factual, and it anchors you into a certain part of the world, and it beats the idea of, trying to use skin tone to connect yourself to the ancient Israelites. Now, I'm not saying, don't use books that talk about black Jews. Keep using them, but DNA can show us that, hey, I have genetic ancestry from the Levant, from the Middle East. You can't say that I don't have an ancestor in my past that comes from that part of the world. And so, when it comes to the Bible, of course, again, DNA shows that we're all connected. Haplogroups show that we all have a common ancestor, and DNA shows that there is definitely a God. I think it's kind of impossible for for the Big Bang and evolution to be true with if you study DNA. DNA is such a complex thing that I just can't see how over billions and millions of years that DNA just came into existence slowly over time. It's way too complex for this to just be chance, that it all just came about through chance. There is a designer behind our DNA, and this designer specifically showed us that we all are related, and that we all connect to each other, and that if any small form of DNA is mutated or changed, it can be a beneficial change, or it can be a bad change. But still, DNA shows us that it is a very complex thing that couldn't just came about out of chance. Like a lot of atheists say, Earth just came about from chance. We just happened to be in the Goldilocks zone. We just happened to been the first to evolve from the chimp to a Homo sapien to a Homo sapien. It's like, nah, bro, this is not chance. This has got to be from a designer. DNA proves intelligent design, and it improves a God. The only choice is, which God do you choose to believe? And I believe it's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
So we have a question on the screen from Michael Allen. Which ancient Israelite did you take your original sample from, Abraham or Christ?
Great question. So we wouldn't be able to get Christ's DNA, considering that he went back to his father, according to the scriptures. So we wouldn't be able to have his DNA. He's no longer on the earth. Abraham, if I remember correctly, we know where he was buried according to the scriptures, and I think his body, or his tomb, is like a shrine now in Israel, if I remember correctly. But Of course, we can't touch the dead like that. We can't like disturb the dead, especially in Israel. It's very political. So we haven't gotten any DNA from Abraham, which is why there are basically two things we can do. Well, technically, there's three things we can do. One, we can just wait for them to test ancient Israelite remains from the Iron Age. They already tested them. They aren't releasing the samples, but apparently this year in 2022, there might be something coming out. I can't wait for that paper. Oh man, I can't wait. But so two other things we can do besides waiting is test and see what is a proto-Semite, what is the proto-Semitic, the basal Semitic population, because we know the Israelites are Semites. All research has led me to the Natufians being the basal population of the Israelites and Natufian related populations. And Natufians, as well as Natufian related populations, have haplogroup E. This is why I posit haplogroup E, Proto-Semitic, Proto-Afroasiatic. So I believe the Israelites would have an E marker. And then, so that's the second mechanism you can do to get closer to the ancient Israelite population, looking at their ancestors, the ancestors of the Israelites, Proto-Semites. And you can look at modern people who claim descent from the Israelites and who have the Proto-Semitic Afro-Asiatic genetic marker, like I said, haplogroup E. So we see that 20% of Ashkenazi Jews, 30% of Sephardic Jews, Samaritan Jews from the tribe of Levi in Israel with haplogroup E. You even have Jews who claim descent from King David with haplogroup E, like the Laura rabbinical family. So looking at those populations can kind of indicate that, you know, E's a pretty good chance of being the Israelites. I believe that if we dig up Israelite remains, we're going to find haplogroup E based on those two things.
So the Bible, let me ask, how all of a sudden we need DNA? We didn't ask those people in the land these questions.
I mean, technically, I think when it came to 1948, I think they used DNA and prophecy to kind of prove that they were Israel or something like that. I know some DNA was involved in some cases, but people have asked them for their DNA and people have tested their population. That's why there's so many papers on Jewish DNA. But and really, frankly, there's papers of on DNA on many human populations. So yeah, everybody has a paper on themselves. And by the way, that is my YouTube channel, The Hebrew of Israel. I just uploaded a video. It came out at 6 o'clock this morning. It was supposed to come out 6 o'clock tonight, and I'm kind of disappointed on that. But a recent video just came out, haplogroup J equals Japheth part 5. But that's my YouTube channel. This video is just a summary.
So I'm gonna play a couple of trailers. He has a trailer for his proto-Semitic concept and also haplogroup J. So I'm gonna play a couple of these trailers right quick, and again to see if anyone wants to jump on and ask some questions. If not, we'll just close this thing out for you.
This video is just a summary of upcoming videos dealing with the genotype and phenotype of Proto-Semites from an old Earth and young Earth creation perspective. But before we get too deep into the video, first I want to tell you guys about my social media platforms. So I have a Clubhouse account and we can actually talk to one another on it. I also host Clubhouse rooms every now and then where I might talk about history and genetics of the Middle East and Africa. I have a Twitter page, a Facebook account, and a Facebook page, as well as a Instagram, all titled The Hebrew of Israel. And what I typically do on these platforms is post upcoming videos as well as slides for my presentations. And so just be on the lookout for all of that on my social media platforms. And if you want to support me financially for the channel, you can look at my Patreon as well as my PayPal and my GoFundMe. And with all of that out of the way, let's begin with the video. So this upcoming series of videos is a summary of my old Earth creation videos and my young Earth creation videos. I have two playlists for each subject, titled The Origins of Proto-Semites. That one specifically deals with old Earth creationists. And my second playlist is From Shem to Eber to Abraham, which is a young Earth creationist perspective of the origins of Semites. So, for the full information, go to my playlist in my YouTube channel. If you want the full, all the facts, all the information dealing with, an older perspective of the origins of Semites and a young Earth perspective for the origins of Semites. But my last set of videos is a summary of basically those two entire playlists. Here is each video that summarizes the entire playlist, both for genotype and phenotype of proto-Semites. So what's coming out is, and by the way, just to know what old Earth creationism is, old Earth creationism is a form of creationism which includes day-age creationism, gap creationism, and progressive creationism. Broadly speaking, OEC, or Old Earth Creationism, occupies a middle ground between young Earth creationism and theistic evolution. So here is the summary of Old Earth creationism, which is going to be titled The Genotype of Proto-Semites, OEC. And here is the Old Earth creationist video that deals with phenotype, titled The Phenotype of Proto-Semites, OEC. Again, this will be a summary of everything we covered in the past. And then, of course, we have the Young Earth creationist views. So, Young Earth creationism is a form of creationism which holds as a center tenet that the Earth and its life forms were created in their present forms by supernatural acts of a deity between approximately 6,000 and 10,000 years ago. And so here is my video that will summarize everything dealing with the older perspective of the genetics of Semites, titled The Genotype of Proto-Semites, YEC, and same thing with phenotype, the phenotype of Proto-Semites, YEC. Also, within this summary of the Old Earth and Young Earth, I'll have two final videos concerning Abraham when it comes to Abraham's summary and his origins. Everything I say in these two videos can be used for both a Old Earth creation and Young Earth creation model. So when you see those two Abraham videos come out, both Old Earth and Young Earth models can work. Just keep that in mind. And so the video will be called What is the Genome of Abraham, OEC and YEC? And for the phenotype, it'll be titled What Did Abraham Look Like, OEC and YEC? And finally, I'll end with an overall summary of basically everything I've covered and why I believe what I believe in a very short, nice video. But yes, this is basically, what is coming out for these last set of videos dealing with, the origins of Proto-Semites. Again, it's a summary of the genotype and phenotype of Proto-Semites from my other playlist videos, as I said earlier. Again, I have two playlists, The Origins of Proto-Semites, which deals with an old Earth creation perspective for the origins of Semites, and then I have a young Earth creation perspective for the origins of Semites, titled From Shem to Eber to Abraham. Again, these are in my playlist video on my YouTube channel. But this video is only a summary of those two playlists. So I still recommend strongly that you watch the playlist. But here's a nice summary just in case you got done watching the playlist and you want to understand, okay, so what is the basic view in a nice, short, compact way? And here are the videos that kind of give you that. So hopefully you enjoy this. And as I always say, there will be a Q&A after these set of videos are done, and y'all can actually speak to me on StreamYard, and we can actually, dialogue when it comes to this. So thank you and have a great day. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video. Shalom.
Is there anything you'd like to break down about that series in your playlist while I go look for your other trailer?
Yeah, so basically, those were some of my earliest videos, breaking down the origins of Afro-Asiatics and haplogroup E and its connection with it. And I'm actually going to sort of redo that series here soon. I'm going to redo it and show some more new information that I found, and sort of just remind people, because if you look at my comment
What
section, I've
is
been in
the
a lot of
academic
debates,
and
and
biblical?
it seems to me that people are starting to forget. So I'll be recapping parts of that series here soon with new information as well.
No, that is what's up, sir. That is definitely what's up. So again, people, the link is out there in the chat if you want to jump on and ask some questions. I'm going to play this last little trailer here. Ask my brother a question. If no one jumps on, I'm going to make a once over of the chat and just jump off. But with that, I'm going to let this play.
What is the academic and biblical origins of haplogroup J? Welcome to the Hebrew of Israel channel. This next series of videos will answer that exact question, the academic understanding and the biblical understanding of haplogroup J, and who are they? This is important because we're trying to discover who are the ancient Hebrews of Israel. And some people believe that haplogroup J is Semitic. So this is what we're going to try to figure out and discover. With that being said, we will be using 4 fields of anthropology to figure out this question of haplogroup J, if it is indeed Proto-Semitic in origin and belongs to the ancient Israelites. But what are the 4 fields of anthropology? So the 4 fields of anthropology is physical anthropology, archaeology, linguistic anthropology, and cultural anthropology. These methods will help us figure out who are the early haplogroup J males. The basic questions we'll have to ask ourselves is this. 1, what are the origins of haplogroup J? 2, what early human ethnic groups that we can study had haplogroup J? 3, what was the culture of these early haplogroup J men? 4, what language did these early haplogroup J men speak? 5, what ancient ethnic groups had haplogroup J? 6, what did these early haplogroup J men look like? And 7, with all this information put together, who would haplogroup J best harmonize with from a biblical perspective? This method will help us figure out who are the early haplogroup J males, because as we know, many ethnic groups lived in the ancient Near East. Who did these early J men belong to? Was it the Israelites or someone else? Because we had Hurrians and Elamites and Gutians and Kazites and Sumerians and Amorites and Semites. All types of people lived in the ancient Near East. So who does J best fit? Furthermore, we also know linguistically that there was various languages other than Semitic that was spoken in the ancient and even modern Near East. So, what language family does early haplogroup J men belong to? Was it the Israelites or some other population, some other group of people? Because we have Semitic, we have Caucasian, we have Altic, we have even Indo-European in the Near East. So who does J belong to the most? These are the questions we must ask ourselves. And I believe it's best to start at the beginning and work your way from the past to the present to be as accurate as possible. And of course, as the scriptures say, I believe it's important to understand the past to remember the days of old. Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 7 says, remember the days of old, consider the years of many generations. Ask thy father, and he will show thee, thy elders, and they will tell thee. That being said, join me on our journey to discovering the biblical and academic origins of haplogroup J.
And we are still in that series of haplogroup J, sort of. Interesting question. So this is ridiculous. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm all about the Torah and I think that's the Brit Hadashah, correct? But DNA is taking away from the study of those. Search the scriptures in them. You have eternal life, brethren. And what you going to do if your DNA isn't what you want? All right, so I'll kind of break that question down. So I'll start with the last one. What do you do if your DNA isn't what you want? Well, like you just said, you follow the scriptures. The scripture says, do not lie. You just tell the truth. If your DNA doesn't fit what you want, still go ahead and tell the truth of that fact. Don't just don't lie. If the DNA doesn't fit what you want, just tell the truth, be truthful about it. And also, when it comes to the Torah, the Brit Hadashah, when you talk about eternal life, like I said earlier, I'm not saying people with haplogroup E are going to automatically go to heaven or anything. I kind of, to a certain extent, separate DNA with the question of eternal life, because that's a salvation issue. And currently, with this video tonight, we're not talking about salvation. We're talking about the interview I did with Vocab, but yeah, so maybe that'll be a good question if we had like an eternal life salvation video, but that's not what we're currently talking about.
A lot of people say, well, why talk about it at all? What significance is it to the Bible?
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll say some of it now. Why DNA haplogroups? They actually prove all of humanity is the same. That all of humanity descends from a common ancestor. This fits with the Bible because we all descend from who? Adam and Eve, and we all descend from Noah and his sons. And DNA, why DNA haplogroups, mitochondrial DNA, it proves that fact that we all descend from a common ancestor. Also, DNA is extremely complex. There's no way under the sun that for billions and millions of years from the Big Bang and evolution that DNA just came about. It is too complex. If you actually study DNA, cells, chromosomes, genes, alleles, etc., all of that is extremely complex. And it proves intelligent design. And everything has DNA. Humans, animals, plants, they all have DNA. And it's super complex. And it proves intelligent design. So you can use DNA to say, hey, that there is a God. You have to say that there is a God through DNA, if you want to go with like the more intellectual route. And at that point, it just depends on, who, which God do you believe in? I mean, even Richard Dawkins, a hardcore atheist, even tried to say that aliens created humans because of the fact that DNA is so complex. He had to go with the alien route, which is sad. But like I said, DNA proves intelligent design. It depends on who you believe is that intelligent designer. I believe it's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob because it fits with the scriptures. And yeah.
Shout out to the ancient alien Israelites. You know what I'm saying? There are, unfortunately, there are Israelites that have the ancient alien DNA concept as well. So it's true. But it's not just limited to atheists and whatnot. But that's why I'm happy to talk to people like yourself and people like Yeshua, etc., who have their head firmly wrapped around the DNA conversation. But yeah, I think it's very important to what you're saying. Like, so as a creationist, you're saying that DNA is so complex that it proves the creator. It proves a grand architect in this whole thing.
Exactly. It's way too complex. No way it came about slowly over billions of years.
Yeah, and I'm definitely proud to say that as part of that's going to be something I touch on quite a bit because I actually like to debate evolutionists. I like to debate atheists, etc. and particularly the evolutionists on concepts like abiogenesis, etc. And to that effect, family, stay tuned, because as playing the devil's advocate, because not many people want to debate my people from the Yap, you know what I'm saying? I will be debating Ibri on some devil's advocate type stuff, like on is J Proto-Semitic versus E, is R Proto-Semitic versus E, etc. Things like that. Because my man can't get a debate, because people are running from the young men. How y'all running from a man who's 23, fam? Stop it. Stop running. But then want to talk about the young men. Stop running. Stop running.
Yeah, that's the one I don't understand. Talk about me, but then don't want to talk to me. Like, I'm nice. I'm not gonna, like, the only time I give that fire is when people act crazy to me. But I am nice, like, most of the time.
Yeah, when he yells, it sounds like this. This is his mean voice, family. Like, so yeah, that's what I'm saying. But there's a lot of people who don't want to have the DNA conversation, or they have assumptions like, well, oh no, Jay's obviously this. Like, there's people who talk quite a bit, and they talk very hard and heavy about the Semitic origins of certain haplogroups, but they don't want to actually get into the meat with you, right? So, like I said, I will be coming through as the. Hold on, let me do it like this. You know what I'm saying? Let me do it like this. I will be coming through as the devil's advocate. You know what I'm saying?
Nice.
And I am a cold devil's advocate debater. I tend to be better at making these arguments than the people making the arguments themselves. So I'll probably hit you with some stuff that you haven't heard concerning Jay, or certain kind of arguments and whatnot. Same thing with R. But all praise, I believe it will give you an opportunity to A, sharpen your teeth a little bit, but B, get your information out there, because a lot of people aren't trying to debate the information straight up.
Facts. Yeah. That discussion, were we gonna do that in the summer?
We can schedule that off air whenever you like, man. I think
okay.
Sooner rather than later, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, okay.
But summer's fun, like whenever you got time, because I know you're in school, man. And school comes first.
Big facts.
School definitely comes first. I'm not trying to have your parents come and look for me with that. You know what I'm saying? But with that, family, if there's no more questions, I'm going to give it to my man for a closeout statement. Then I will close out. Then we can say peace to each other. You know what I'm saying?
All right. So I guess the last thing I'll say is, if you want to have that discussion, vocab, I'm down. Because we kind of were basically having one. Even though it was supposed to be like a hot seat type of thing, we were having a pretty good dialogue. I liked it, at least. And also I'm on Clubhouse. We can talk on there as well. I prefer StreamYard, just in case we have to show things, but And for the people watching currently right now, check out my YouTube channel, The Hebrew of Israel, and my social media platforms. New episodes always come out Friday at 6:00, and sometimes every now and then I might schedule incorrectly, and it might come out like 6:00 in the morning. It's supposed to come out 6:00 in the afternoon, but 9 times out of 10, it's always 6:00 in the afternoon. New episodes every Friday, and then Saturdays and Sundays I post mini sections of the episode that comes out on Friday, so people don't have like so much to, like, it doesn't overwhelm them, because I do like 2-hour episodes. But yeah, check out my channel, and don't be afraid of DNA. It's not something difficult to understand. Just read a couple of books on it, learn about the origins of Semites, because it actually proves our point of being Israelites, and hit the ops where they don't want to be hit. Some of the ops don't like DNA. They don't want to touch on it. So study it. Some ops do study DNA and touch on it. And so how are you going to defend your point of view if they ask you about DNA? Well, you got to study it. And so that's what we're here for. That's what Yapgang is here for. And the last thing I got to say is shalom, James, shalom, Shari, Yeshub, Yitzhak, Sean, Elkam, Rue, and everybody else in Yapgang, Ramayahu. everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, I reverberate all that right there. And again, shout out to Yapgang for what they're doing, because this is a very, like, this DNA conversation is going to be paramount going forward. People don't see it right now, but it's I'm forecasting thing like the Amazon stock before it went big, right? Before you know what I'm saying, before Apple went big on the stock, right? Let me tell you like this, like, so again, the like Ibri said, there's not a lot of genetic information concerning Jews right now. But right now, because we live in the age of DNA tests, and again, in the concept of Hispanic people and people of African descent finding out about their Israelite heritages and whatnot, fam, this is going to become a big conversation when it comes to genetics, DNA, who's Jewish, who's not Jewish, what that means for Jewish culture, what that means for all kind of stuff and whatnot. And so this is a conversation that, and on top of that, going forward into science, like my man says, it proves the creator. It's too complex. The concept of irreducible complexity and the creator, like DNA is a prime example of this whole thing, fam. And so on top of that, there's ways to, like my man said, how'd he say it? I liked how he said this joint. He said there's a signature on this joint. There is a signature on this joint. And the cool part is like a creationist can show this signature where somebody who's an evolutionist cannot show the signature, and it's staring them right in the face. Their science is their science is giving them the signature right now, and they're refusing to acknowledge it because of the implications. But with that, I'd also like to say this here. Hold on. So what we do over here is we do debates and we do dialogues. We do moderated debates to where we have unbiased moderators debate or moderate the debates, and we have moderated dialogues to where we do the same, where we try to let everybody take off the land with their points. We let everybody's position be clearly understood. Nobody gets kneecapped, no ad hominems. There's no swearing, none of that type of stuff. This is family-friendly entertainment, edutainment, and we try to keep it clean and try to bring the best information we can to the people. But with that, family, I appreciate y'all for coming through. Appreciate y'all for your comments. If you have any questions for the Yapgang about DNA, please leave them in the comment section down below. Like I said, I will be regularly playing their videos on either Tuesdays and Thursdays, depending on when, what the schedule is with debates on Debate Talk for You, etc. Y'all know how it is in these YouTube streets. Sometimes debates got to get rescheduled and all that type of stuff. Y'all know what it is. So we'll keep the Tuesday/Thursday schedules, the Table of Nations with the Yapgang. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully we'll get everybody to come on for different interviews and different things, group panels and all that kind of stuff. Like I said, we're gonna get some debates popping on DNA. If you want that DNA smoke, the Yapgang is here. Don't duck him, son. Do not duck him, son. And here's a question here that we will pick up going into another episode. Orthodox More, I would like for you to elaborate on E1A2B. So I'm E1A, and I will definitely elaborate on that and go into the further discussions, because I'm probably gonna have Yapgang come on and we're all gonna run through all of our DNA together, our haplogroups and our autosome, just so you can see how we kind of get down and see how we talk about things, etc. And see what kind of information can be gleaned from such. And in so doing, I will break down my E1A DNA. I also have some videos on my channel you can go check out if you want to go check that out right now. In the meantime, but with that, family, I appreciate y'all for coming through. And with that, I say peace and love.